All right, guys. Hey there. This is the next episode of AR Explainer by INDE. Today we have with us Norby Kovac, who is the CTO of INDE. Hello, Norby. We've got
Hi.
Alex Allenson, who is the COO of INDE. Hello, C-Suite.
Hi.
You are
Hey, guys.
CSUM. That's like awesome. So my name is Brett Kobe. I am the host of this show, AR Explainer. I'm coming to you today from Cleveland, Ohio, my hometown. I'm quarantining in a hotel next to a shopping center, and I'm perfectly fine with that. It's great. So what we're going to talk about today on this episode of AR Explainer is this phenomenon that we're seeing, which is not so surprising, but also very interesting in the sense that how could we not talk about COVID-19 and what's happening about it, but the idea of the power of place, that regardless of where you are in the world right now, and I think we're probably in 3 different countries, gentlemen, but we don't have to get into that because does it matter? Not really, it doesn't, because we're connected online. No matter where you are right now and whatever phase of the pandemic that you find yourself in, you had a big wave, you had a little wave, everywhere is different right now. What we've all seen is that at the tail end of a wave, no matter how big it is, that people desperately want to get back to physical places and do the things that they couldn't do before. And the kind of origin of this episode is, well, you know, if they're going back, why are they going back, and what do they expect of those places? And not only what do they expect right now, so how do we size up a market that may last for, you know, market conditions that may last for a year or two, but what does that mean in the longer term? So why exactly would you go to these places? What experience are you looking for? So Alex and Norby, what do you think right now, like before we get into all the awesome videos that I have prepared for us, which is a thing that I do, why do you think people actually want to go places and do things just on a general level at any time?
Well, I think it's a really basic tenet of the human condition. I think we are fundamentally social beings. I think one of the nice things about COVID is that it has been a great sort of investigation about human behavior, and there's certainly been plenty of narrative about the fact that we crave human contact, we crave physical touch, we crave a number of the things that fundamentally you can't get just sitting around at home by yourself. And that's just how we are wired as human beings, irrespective of how technology or other social conditions has taken us in different directions. We still fundamentally, as a physical being, we crave social contact, and that's not something that I think we're going to evolve out of in the short term. And I think that really does drive what for some people may even be irrational behavior at the current moment, people's sort of desperation to be part of a physical connection with other humans.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that walking around here at the shopping center, which I'll show you some amazing footage of, which by the way, could be any shopping center in any, you know, middle American town, because they all look about the same. They all have about the same stores, and really the places, physical places like that, especially outside of the big cities, are like the center of life. So many cities, towns in the middle of America, they don't have like a classic downtown area anymore. They have the shopping center. So if you think about the importance of that, you know, you really can't overlook that. So it's almost as if you take the social, the social, you know, I guess what's in our DNA and what we're built to do, and then you just you look at how this country has developed, and you can't help but get away from the idea that if we're going to socialize, we're going to go do it in a physical place, like a movie theater, like a restaurant, like a bar, you know, and that's where we're going to kind of find the answers to those needs. So I wanted to look into just a few different types of scenarios where people are going to these places. One of them has been in the news lately in the US, is the closure of a movie theater chain. And I happen to have one outside here, outside my window of my hotel. And I'm just going to play some footage really quickly of what that experience looks like. Right. So what an experience that was. I was so glad to return to this physical space. And I looked outside. Obviously, well, not obviously, but just so everyone knows, I love movies. It's not really the time to go see one, but I thought, part of the reason to stay around here was, okay, that's where the movie theater is, not an option. So there's a lot of debate about, what brought this into being. Do you think that when we think about entertainment in physical places, was the movie theater something that was bound to end, or have people got that all wrong, or what could they have done differently? So movie theaters, tell me, what do you think?
Well, just as you, Brett, I love movies as well. Well, I think it was inevitable. I mean, the social distancing that was basically put in place to try to avoid this pandemic to go boom. That I think the movie theaters were the first ones to be affected, because it's a closed place, closed space with a lot of people in one closed environment for an hour and a half, or maybe 2 hours, or sometimes 3, depending on which movie you watch. And it was just bound to happen. And I hope that it will get back to normal on some level, because I would love to go. But right now, I think in the short term, this is they were one of the victims of the whole pandemic. Basically.
Yeah, and I think it raises a really kind of interesting point about essentially what we need physical spaces for, and I think what these entertainment spaces are going to need to provide to people to bring people back. Because like movies is a great specific example of how an industry has really been transformed by the pandemic, but also when alongside the proliferation of effectively streaming technology now. I mean, it's the platforms that are now available to people to secure content at home are just so broad ranging. There's such a huge amount of content of great quality available at home that you need to go to the movie theater to go and see it. And in fact, a lot of kind of malls are, I mean, they're really uninspiring experiences. They're these kind of almost prefab buildings where, the carpet's a bit old and sticky and the chairs aren't particularly comfortable. And it's quite a sterile experience for experiencing something which is quite visceral. It's in circumstances, it's a very powerful thing going to see a movie and sharing that experience with other people. And if you're going to see that in what's effectively a large box with a projector behind you and a huge bucket of popcorn, I mean, really, why would you do that when you can see it at home? It really does challenge the movie owners to transform that experience. I don't believe it will be the death of cinema in the same way. I mean, video didn't kill the radio star to torpedo that movie, to torpedo that song already. But I think what's very apparent already is that there are people who are agile and exploring different ways of getting people into those theaters. The smaller movie chains, for example, showing like art house movies, being able to more control the audience, providing more of a genuine experience rather than something which is passive. And I think this kind of illustrates the fact that we're going to want more out of that experience.
And what do you think what does that experience look like? There's a lot of debate about, okay, well, maybe they need to be smaller and more expensive. You have one theater per genre, right? So this is all the art house, you already had your art house versus your mainstream, but maybe you need to get even more niche, right? And how much of that experience, whatever it is, how much is that about technology and how much is that just about people and, furniture, right? So what do you guys think?
I think it's not about technology at all. Mm-hmm. I mean, technology is a secondary thing here, because I mean, it's there. It's already if people want to see a great movie and stream it online, they can do that. So technology is there, but it really is to find a niche for these theaters that they can just pull people back in, and maybe it will be just in the short term. Maybe they can just open up again, and then people will show up. But eventually, they will have to transform themselves to a more social and more entertaining experience. It's not just see a film on a bigger screen, because everyone has a big screen. Not everyone, but most people have big screen TVs at home if they want to watch that. It will need to be more, as Alex said, and as you said, that it maybe it will be a coffee house and that will be a movie showing or something like that.
Well, I wanted to show, similarly to movie theaters, I think museums are also having a moment as well, right? So they're just like a movie theater, any kind of location-based entertainment venue, their business model is traffic, right? So they need to have a lot of people moving through. Museums are not typically a thing that you really want to do online, so they have that going for them. If you're in the mood for a museum, you're not like, oh, I want to go to a virtual one. No, you don't, right? So that's a good thing. But when you're there, you know, there's some short-term innovation that I think is worth looking at. But then the question is going further, with people just generally thinking twice about going places, maybe even for a few years. What else is that? You know, what does that look like in the medium term? So I want to show you one example from the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam, which my colleague Bo shared with me over the weekend, and I did not get his permission to show this, nor did he get their permission to film it. So who's wrong? Who's wrong here? Anyway, so I'm going to show you this. It has sound, so you can understand the experience. This is projection mapping in a big space there. So there's a lot of people in there, so interesting. But here we go. Some nice detail there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my thought on this is, okay, we've got a big empty space, and they've done a lot with it, right? So there's quite a lot to take in there. So one of my questions is, will we see, is this one of the new roots of immersive entertainment if the movie theater is a little bit changing around? Or, you know, does the museum become a place where we are entertained rather than educated?
Well, I think this. I mean, this to me illustrates. I really like what they've done there, because I think they've first of all taken on the challenge of a space that they can probably more control the sanitation of. You know, that's fundamentally flat walls, flat floor. You know, you've got to think that's got to be infinitely easier to clean than a museum environment with paintings on walls and, you know, various other physical implements to cleanliness. So that's, you know, they've applied some brain power there to creating an environment that I think is probably on a practical level more visitable in the current environment. I think what they've also done is they've brought something which is fundamentally static and passive, a painting on the wall, they bring them to life. And I think that transforms the experience. I mean, you know, immersive is more engaging. You know, I think that's much as that's a bold statement, I think it's also a statement of common sense. Well, they're presenting artwork in a way that's different, and it makes you engage with it more because it's not passive. You know, you're almost forced to engage in it, and I think that I think is really one of the key lessons from that we can learn from this particular kind of installation. What they're doing is they've taken the challenge of the current circumstances and they are transforming the way in which they're presenting. They're presenting an installation to us. And you know, and as a result, we're consuming it in a different way. And I think this is where, you know, the kind of natural segue into AR. And as you know, as we all know, I mean, you know, there's numerous examples of how AR has created more engaging experiences within museums, where trying to get people engaged with artifacts in boxes. You know, it's been done. You know, people are looking for something more, and you really can change it. You really can change the experience by making it dynamic, animated, interactive, and that means that the visitors just get that much more from the experience. So, much as I'm sure plenty of other people have used that wonderfully overworked cliche of, never waste a good crisis. That, there are great examples out there at the moment of people who are using the problems that we've got in a COVID-based environment to change the way that we are consuming what's potentially in those environments, which means that they're still available for people to have physical experiences in.
Yeah, but I think it's also it's the way forward, regardless of the current circumstances and the pandemic. It's you have to entertain people, you have to entertain guests, and sometimes it's enough, but most of the time it's not enough to just show paintings on the wall. If you want to educate people about the topic that you're showing, so you have to immerse them within this environment, so they are present within a painting, for example. So that particular painting will have a lot bigger impact on them than if they just stare at it at a wall. I'm not minimizing the importance of a painting on a wall. I'm just saying that you can enhance that experience with something like a projection mapping that you just showed.
Norby, I wanted to just jump to.
I think I mean, AR, augmented reality. I mean, almost it defines itself. I mean, it's almost a shame you use augmented because it's quite a kind of it's not a very commonly used word. If you use like enhanced, for example, this is what this is. This is enhanced reality. There is a reality there, and you're transforming it for the viewer.
Can you guys hear me all right? Just checking. Yeah. Okay, great. So, Norby, I wanted to show this other example that I know that you worked on from another museum in the US. This is, can you all see it? Because I can't see it on mine. All right, great. Yeah, hope the audience can see it too. If not, maybe you could just tell me what we're looking at now, Norby.
This is an interactive kiosk called Hero Mirror. That's in this product that we installed in Graceland. This is an AR experience that allows guests to take pictures with Elvis, and it's a great tool because the way they choose these pictures that they want to be part of is that they go through a questionnaire, and the system basically tells them which era of Elvis they are most connected to, and they show and the system shows a video and of course a photo opportunity. So visitors can see themselves on a mirror, on a camera image, and then a virtual Elvis appears next to them, and then they can share the photos with themselves or whoever they want to, and that's the gist of it, basically.
Cool. So I've been to Graceland. I'm lucky enough to go probably 10, 15 years ago. And the idea that you can kind of, that is evolved. I mean, they could very easily at Graceland have said, okay, Graceland is Graceland. Let's just leave it. And I see what they've done is the Memphis part of it, they've really, I guess it's across the street, right? So then they really said, you've got Graceland as it always was. That part of it, and then this is a little bit like the evolution of the Elvis story, right? So it continues to kind of grow with the technology.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And it's basically to, as we mentioned, enhance the experience and put people next to Elvis, and then have a takeaway from this experience, which is once in a lifetime, I guess, for me at least.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Elvis was an innovator, wasn't he? I mean, I mean, fundamentally, you find that people who really are representative of innovation, they like to stay at the kind of bleeding edge of innovation. I mean, this is why it's great for us to have taken the call from the Presley family to develop this installation. It's it really is. It keeps him at the kind of cutting edge of technology and the kind of immersive experience that you can provide to the fan.
Yeah.
Cool. And just thinking of cutting edge stuff, obviously that's some of your stuff, but one other thing that's been making the news, which came in early pandemic, early pandemic. Look at this, early wave one, mid, maybe a month into wave one. It's going to be weird how we start to, like, referring back to periods in time. It's going to be, it's not like we'll be on 1,000 different time zones, trying to figure out what was, because everything's so different. Anyway, was this the Travis Scott concert on Fortnite? So just to talk about for a second the entertainment side of what's happening there. So can you all see it?
Yeah.
Can you guys see it? Okay. It's always a bit delayed on my side. Fun, but good that it's there. And the idea here is that Travis Scott got into the Fortnite universe, which is obviously a big time game world that has been created. And eventually he pops up here and then he puts on a show. So this, I think, to your point, Alex, was meant to give people a simulation of what it would be to be at a concert. It was very well attended. This was, it must have been April or May this year. My question is this really the future of entertainment from home, or was this just a really great and super expensive, probably, thing that we did when we couldn't do anything else? Like, are we going to see more of this, or was this it? What do you think?
I mean, I think a lot of this, a lot of innovation is trying stuff out. It's sort of use the old cliche, it's throwing spaghetti at the wall, isn't it? Some of it sticks, and this probably multiple online events is groundbreaking because it's the alignment of two kind of great brands in a really interesting blend fundamentally. And this is the one that people were talking about because it was so interesting and new and dynamic, and things like that stick. People like it, and people will like it again. Again, I think this is it just gives people more and different opportunities to consume content and to consume and participate in events and be part of the world that they enjoy. Whether it's the Fortnite world or the Travis Scott world or both. And it's these kind of experiences which really, really hit the heights are the ones that will be replicated. People will learn from this and they'll do it again.
I guess it depends on the statistics as well. I don't know how many people tuned in,
right?
But yeah. If it was 20, I'm guessing it won't happen again. But I would put a large amount of money to say that it was a successful from the stats point of view.
One thing I noticed there is that, if you're going to make something like that, we could have had Travis Scott in our face in any particular way, right? Like, he could be appearing as, like, speaking to us directly. Anything could be happening, but instead what we're seeing is a simulation of a concert, right? So what people wanted to crave, back to the power of place, was the idea that they were in a physical space and there were others around them. And you see that a lot, I think, in the digital innovation that's out there right now. Is even Zoom recently introduced, I just saw it yesterday, but they introduced these backgrounds where it looks like you're sitting in a classroom together, or that looks like you're sitting in like at a boardroom together. Very basic stuff, but people are like, oh my gosh, look, we're at a thing together. We've simulated a physical space. And then if you look at Facebook and their efforts to create Horizon, that world that is very virtual, but also the idea that our brains need first to have a physical space simulated, and then we can go further. So it seems like the first wave of innovation for the next 20 years is all going to be about technology tricking our brains into thinking we're in a space that looks and mostly feels like a regular space, right? So we don't need that many bells and whistles right now. We're not in full Ready Player One mode. We have a ways to go where we just want to be like, okay, I just want to pretend like I'm across the street. That's fine. So do you feel the same way, that we first have to go through our basic, virtual places, and then we can get into the really crazy stuff? What do you guys think?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I honestly don't know the answer to that. I feel like that being together with friends, family, in a place that you normally wouldn't get to together, that's powerful, even if it's a bench on a park somewhere, or just an empty space. and you are all just 3D avatars in that space, because it gives you the impression, as you said, that you are together. And as Alex mentioned regarding the movie theaters, it's in our basic instinct to be with each other, like be social, and if we cannot do that in the real world, I think if it happens virtually, that's powerful enough. But I think that as restrictions will lift, and people will be able to get together in a real space again, normally, that virtual space that initially was enough as an empty space, that we have to be more immersive, more entertaining, more have more bells and whistles. So,
so
but I don't know.
Priority one seems to be you simulate. It's not the place that you're simulating; it's the social connection, right?
Yeah.
And if it's almost as if you don't get that. If that's not baked into whatever you're doing, then you're not really solving a problem, are you? You're just kind of adding a bell and a whistle without, and we all know that, I don't know, probably Abraham Lincoln said it, that technology has to solve a problem. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and wouldn't that be funny if you said that?
I think
it was Moses.
Yeah. But so, yeah, I mean, it's really, really interesting. And I'm just kind of having the realization now that I'm having the conversation, because, it's always these moments when we're all together online that I'm like, oh, wait, it's that we need to do. Not just make some cool stuff, but make sure that people actually come together, and whoever figures that problem out is going to win, the tech race. I would say probably the big tech names right now have embraced that a little bit. So if you look at the Facebook and Apples of the world running, headfirst into VR and AR, and that way. So do you think, kind of a sidebar question, are they going to define what simulated social connection looks and feels like in the next 2 years? Well, what do you think? Or will INDE? How about that?
Well, look, I mean, I think it's fairly well established, the market dominance that the big tech players have, and that means that they just have the ability to move the needle, to use a very overworked cliche, with human behavior, simply because of the mass and reach that they have, and financial resources, and any number of other things. It means that if they want to do something, they can do it, and they can do it with a size and a scale that makes a shift in behavior that much more likely. So, I mean, I certainly think that no matter what innovation comes from the smaller companies like ourselves, the needle gets moved much more substantially only when the bigger guys start to get involved. And I mean, what's very clear is they've got an appetite for it. I think it's from their perspective, and again, this is the sort of I don't know what the right phrase is. I mean, as these companies get bigger and bigger and bigger, their risk profile maybe reduces slightly. Of course, there's regulatory issues as well for them at the moment, depending on, I guess, who comes out on top of the next election. Maybe that's the counterbalance. Will they really innovate as fast as they can, because they're now big companies, and big companies we've tend to see over the years are less receptive to really substantial innovation. But I think they are definitely the ones who are most able to implement something which is really groundbreaking.
Yes, and don't forget that they have all that data about social behavior and people behavior. That's power now, so they can base the next development based on that. So it's a good question. I think there will be smaller companies driving as well, driving the innovation, but in a short term they will be part of the big ones, because just big ones have all the money, resources, and of course the data that can back any number of innovations that they choose to do.
Cool. I want to take just a Cleveland-inspired sharp turn in this conversation. You're like, what could that be? So whenever I come back home, especially at this time of year, it's football season, American football season. Yesterday, the Cleveland Browns played against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Very long rivalry. My house where my parents was, we were at 20 feet distance, of course, which is fun. Anyway, besides that, a lot of sports, kind of talk happening from the baseball season to the football season to the basketball season. Everyone is like, what's this about? The news is filled with whoever just tested positive for what, and then will there be a game, yada yada yada. At the end of the day, the stadiums are not able to fill to capacity, obviously. So then from a sports perspective, I think we're seeing a lot of innovation in that space, although there's also a lot of wait and see. We'll just wait until we can do it. But then I think increasingly we're seeing people want to not just wait until it's done, because they're like, well, when's that going to be? Right? So in the meantime, we have to run our business. We have to engage with our fans. So I'm just wanted to turn to sports for a second about, well, what does that look like to engage a community when you really are limited to the internet, social media, and the TV, the telecast, right? One example I just want to throw up right now, and maybe you can talk me through it. Can you see it on your screen?
Yep.
Yeah. This was the Super Bowl. Was it last year or the year before?
This year.
Last year.
This year it was. And
this year, yeah.
So tell me, kind of set the scene there. Where is that taking place? Who's involved?
God,
is that a Norby question or an Alex question?
Yeah, where the location was. I mean,
it was in Miami.
Miami.
Yeah. Okay.
That was a Super Bowl this year.
It's the central of the sports bubble universe, isn't it? It's where the NBA bubble was as well. Yeah, I mean, this was a project that we ran with Visa, and Visa are a sponsor of the NFL of the Super Bowl, and there's an installation that we ran for them in the fan zone at the Super Bowl, and it was a hero mirror. Norby outlined earlier on what the product does. And it enabled fans to basically take their own interactive little videos with their stars, with these guys, these kind of global superstars, and to give people an opportunity to effectively digitally meet them and to digitally play with them, and then walk away with their own keepsake. That's it's fundamentally unique, their interaction with these guys, and that's something which you literally couldn't have, particularly at the moment with COVID restrictions, but even in normal times, to be able to interact with these guys, where their time is so precious that you wouldn't have that access. And this really kind of gives them it isn't the same as clearly having a physical interaction with someone, but it's not far off.
Yeah. Right. And then I just wonder, if I look at I forget what the stadium's called now in Cleveland. They change it every 20 years. So hard to remember, maybe not, or even 10. But obviously, you can only have so many people in there, and that was a huge touch point in the Cleveland Browns brand, was coming to a game, right? That was a thing. So touch points that a sports team have, they've got their social stuff, they've got the game, they've got what happens in the bar, right, where you go to watch the thing. All those things are a little bit not optimal right now. So but what people are willing to do in football season is be outside. And tailgate. So I just wonder if there's some kind of, I see before me some kind of technology enabled, like those hero mirrors are everywhere, right?
Yep.
And they're spread about the city, and you can go, engage with your team everywhere, right? So, but I haven't seen a lot of that happen, So like really instant innovation and fan engagement. And I just like, Norby, is that even possible to like put them like all over the place, or can we?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, we can go right now and put them all over the place. I mean,
so I'm going to the stadium to book it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you have a great point, because it's not just to entertain, of course, the fans, and not just for them to have this experience and have the opportunity to take a picture or a video with their stars. It's also a touch point with them, between the team and the fans, and it can have multiple different functionality. So it's not a one-off that you just do at Super Bowl. It can have changing content. You can push notifications out there, so whoever's walking past, they instantly see it, and as they take a picture, they know what's going on. So it's I think it's a good idea to just have it everywhere in the city.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine. Just I keep pointing to the shopping center that you can't all see, but it's an outdoor kind of. And you have them everywhere now. So it's like the next version of the mall in the US is that it's not one big indoor space, but it's kind of like I dare to say, like a fake European city street.
Yeah.
So, which is very, yeah, exactly. So I just imagine if you are a sports brand and you want to connect with your audience outside the stadium and outside of the TV, I just see, and it sounds like I guarantee, I promise the audience we didn't set up this fake pitch right here on the call, but just the idea that if during baseball or football or basketball season, you as a team are going to set up a pop-up, because you often see that like a fan experience store right during the season, and that it's at this mall or that mall. I don't think that you're going to invest in a big space right now, but it just seems that there are smaller things that you can do which might have just as much ROI as a brand. And that's just being really smart about technology, So if you've got your hero mirror, you can walk by, take the picture. Maybe on there you can order your sweatshirt, whatever the case may be. Seems like, there must be something that we can do instead of just be sad.
Yeah, absolutely.
These initiatives really can help drive uptake of the fan database and that works from a club perspective, looking at the club as a brand, as well as also from their sponsor brands and associated partner brands. I mean, everything that drives a closer affiliation between the fan and the club benefits the club and benefits anyone associated with it in multiple different strands these days. I mean, the big sports clubs, the franchises, whether that's football, baseball, basketball in the States, or like soccer and cricket and other sports worldwide, these franchises are so strong and powerful now, and they're getting more and more astute about building their fan base and collecting data, and then continue to re-engage with that fan base. And again, things like AR, things like immersive experiences are great ways to really reinforce that association.
Yeah, and Norby, I wanted to get your take on something else. I came across some speculative footage of NFL's fan experiences in terms of where they were headed, very Microsoft HoloLens focused. And when I talk to all you great folks at INDE, I always find out that half of the stuff I find on the internet is just nice visual effects and not actual technology. So I'm going to throw something up now. Can you see it?
Yep.
So this is, I think, the HoloLens and the simulation of what could be. So is this a real thing? Can we do this already?
Well, that's, again, an interesting question. In the technology is there. So in theory, we can do it. Mm-hmm. But it has so many moving parts that it's just not viable right now. It's not because of technology doesn't exist, because HoloLens is able to track your space pretty well, so you can place virtual elements within your room accurately. But it has so many moving elements. For example, you have to have the 3D model of each and every player to place in your room. You have to have live statistics. You have so many moving components of this solution that it's still, I think, a few years off, especially because there are not a lot of people like fans or customers who would be able to buy the HoloLens, which is a $3,500 equipment or device that they would. It wouldn't be. It wouldn't make sense, basically, because you would have 5 or 10 people enjoying this experience at home, and that's just not really financially viable.
Really enjoying.
Yeah, that's true. But
okay, so it's not really. So I mean, it's not really a thing.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's a vision for the future when everyone will have a $300 device on their head watching the NFL game. That's something. But in 2016 or 17, this video was taken or done. They said that it's still 5 to 10 years off. Well, I would say that it's still 5 to 10 years off. So it's we still need some time. But it's all connected to the device that people can put on their head or whatever that might be in the future. Right. And if it's cheap enough for going mainstream, basically.
And in terms, is my audio still okay? Just to check.
Yep.
Okay, great. Because I tapped my AirPods and then music played. That was always fun. So don't touch the AirPods. And just, you know, when we're talking about the sports fan experience right now, you're a big footballer, Alex. No,
not big.
You're not, but more than me, right?
Yeah.
So just football, soccer. So like, well, and Norby, I don't know. Are you a sports guy at all?
Yes. Definitely.
Okay. All right. So I'm not really. So just to say, like, how much are you missing as a sports fan now? Like, if you think of what it would have been a year ago to experience, to follow your favorite team or whatever, and all the things that you would do associated with that, how much do you miss that? And then how much is what you're doing now instead actually satisfying your need to engage with that team?
It's an interesting one. I mean, I think, soccer's now back on TV, and soccer is the biggest, I think still globally, it's still the biggest revenue earner for teams worldwide. You know, football and basketball's been back on, and baseball's been back on the US. So, you know, the fan can still consume TV sports in the way that they could before, but it is a different experience because you don't get the sense of the atmosphere in the stadium, which you still get as a TV viewer. And I think there's certainly been a fair amount of discourse in the press about how the player experience is different because they're not driven by the fans. So like the home and away thing just doesn't really exist anymore because, you know, a home game is, you know, there's none of your fans there. There's no one there to support you and barrack the other team. So the dynamics have changed significantly. And there's certainly plenty of people within the industry just desperate to get fans back in because they realize that fundamentally playing in front of a TV audience is just not the same. It's not the same sport. And I think that virtually applies across whichever sport you really play. I mean, pretty well all sports are to be played in front of an audience. Even now, of course, esports now, you know, they might be a digital audience, but they're in the arenas. You know, you want to be playing with people.
I couldn't add anything to that because I agree 100%. I mean, I saw a number of the NBA played in the bubble. The playoffs were played in somewhere in Florida, and I saw that there were like probably live feed of fans watching the games in the background on large screens. But that just felt a little bit clunky and a little bit awkward. Like, all right, I understand why they did that, but it didn't add to the games at all. And I do miss the atmosphere of fans in the arena. So that's something that I'm not sure technology can solve in the short term, and I'm not sure I want technology to solve it.
I mean, it's really nice to hear that from a chief technology officer.
Yeah, I know.
A very honest response, right? So it's kind of like, you know, you're not like a surgeon in the sense that everything needs surgery.
Exactly.
Right? So sometimes technology cannot replace social interaction, and it has to take a little bit of a backseat. And I guess sometimes it can give it the extra push, right? So it won't replace it, but it's more of an enabler, would you say?
Exactly. Okay. So I would say that technology needs to be in the background, invisible, driving the social experiences, and nothing more. Once it's in the front and just taken away and saying, "Look at me! I'm such a awesome technology," that's never going to work.
Yeah, because it's not really solving the problem that it's set out to do, right? Which we've realized is really about people coming together, and as you said, Alex, and maybe that's a good one to close on. is we're not going to evolve fast enough that we don't need to do that anymore to socialize. So I think the sooner that we all realize that that's what's at stake for the next year, 2 years, maybe. So if we're thinking, yes, there'll be a vaccine, but then we'll still have to be careful even with the vaccine because we don't have enough for everyone. So it's almost as if you are a sports marketer, you're in entertainment, you have a location-based entertainment venue, then you need to be thinking, how do I facilitate that interaction with the right amount of technology, but not try to completely simulate something that cannot be simulated, right? But I think also at the same time, not waiting until things return to normal, unless you have a year's worth of cash to burn to sit on, right? Like, we'll just wait, unless you could just take a nap for a year, then you probably need to be thinking about quick wins right now, but then also thinking medium term, what does this mean? But, we all have to get through the next 12 months, don't we? So it's kind of that short and long term together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the ideal, and it's interesting the way the music industry's changed. I think it's an interesting model to look at over the past few years, in that the value of recorded music has gone down, and the value of the live experience is now the pinnacle of the revenue opportunity for recording artists. And I think it's always going to be the same with experiential entertainment, as music is, as sport is. Almost the scarcity of being able to be one of 40,000 people in a stadium to see a particular event really kind of drives value, because ultimately that's the really fun stuff. You're experiencing stuff with other people around you, and I think, as we all know, experiences by yourself are at one level experiences you can share and therefore relate to. They're the real that's the really exciting stuff. And I think sport and other physical entertainment is good. Will stay the same. We're just experiencing how to mitigate the lack of that physical contact at the moment. That's really what these are all solutions, and there'll be good solutions, and some of those will stick. That will mitigate the fact that we don't have the top of the pyramid really is available to us at the moment.
Cool. So, guys, I want to thank you for this next tranche of AR explainers. So I think we got into some really cool stuff on the power of place. We're thinking about entertainment, sports, touched on music there, and would invite everyone, including yourselves, to join us for a few more episodes where we'll delve a bit more deeply into entertainment, into sport, and then figure out what makes sense there in terms of bringing people together, building the right kind of experiences, and where technology fits in. That's AR Explainer. So thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Norby.
Enjoy your Monday evening. Okay. See you, everybody.
Ciao, Cleveland.